Welcome back to the Parapublic YouTube channel. Today's video is Q&A, so let's get straight into it. But before that, I'd just like to say a huge thanks to everybody that is subscribing to our channel, turning on those pesky notifications and liking our videos. It really means a lot, and a special mention to all the Patreons and YouTube members out there. Okay, so the first question comes from Bra Moment. He's asking for a little story time about myself and about my history in racing. And so I raced a lot of years ago. I started in the late 80s, raced all the way through the 90s. My first big win was in Victoria. It was at the state titles. It took heaps of work. I was really stoked. Just like anyone, when you first get that first big victory, it sort of gives you a lot of confidence, and then moved into all the other categories, racing all the way up from juniors into the seniors, and it was good fun. And the most important thing I take away from all my racing is the time I spent with my dad. Doing it together, it was the absolute best growing up, and I really can't recommend that enough. So the biggest takeaway from me and the biggest victories I've had in karting is that time with my family, racing, everyone supports each other, and those memories, they're the best things that I could take away from karting. So the next question's from Jay Townsend. He's a bit of a regular on our Q&A session, so cheers Jay. And he is asking about how to store the Rotax kart, what you need to do to prepare them to stand them vertically. And what we'd say is basically drain the fuel out of the tank, which is a bit of a no-brainer. Then take the carburetor off as well and just drain all the fuel out of the line so you can blow through with a bit of compressed air, and just tip the carburetor upside down and drain the fuel out of it. And then you should be ready to store the car vertically. So Top Cheap Reviews has asked about how to make my go-kart engines last longer, or longer times between rebuilds. Now, what I would suggest is if you want longer time between rebuilds, maybe don't go racing, because when you're racing, everything's got to be lined up, tires, chains, sprockets, all those little things that make an advantage go towards you. You want those stacked in your favor. So if you need a new engine rebuild, and it's going to be the difference between winning and losing, well, you're going to get it done. Now, if you're racing for economics and you just like the fun of it, well, maybe you can just do practice days and probably steer clear of the racing, because that's when the costs really start escalating. So the next question's from Scott, and he's asking, when do you know you've had the best out of your tyres? Well, generally, Scott, the karts are going to start to understeer uncontrollably. That's what I find anyway, on a sort of soft to medium grip tyre. Now, I'd say 50 to 70 kilometres is the optimum, and then 70 to 120 kilometres for a medium compound. And then anything after about 120 kilometres, you're really starting to notice the tyres degrading pretty quickly. So basically, new tyres are the best up to about 120 laps, and look for uncontrollable understeer. The next question is from G. Shembry, and he's asking, how long does fuel last in the kart, or how long does it take before the fuel goes bad? Well, you can leave fuel in your car for a couple of weeks and still use it. I do it here. It's not going to make the engines blow up. Is it ideal? No. So if you are racing, you can drain the tank. Otherwise, use it up in practice and put some fresh stuff in for racing, so that you know you've always got the optimum performance. The fuel may start to go off, or the hydrocarbons can evaporate somewhat, so you may lose some of your performance there. But I haven't been able to measure it myself in, say, the Rotax or the tag classes, or even the K800s. But if you are going to race, put in some fresh juice. Otherwise, if you do have some in the kart already, just use it up. And fuel will go bad after a few months, and you can really smell it. It will still burn, but it's just terrible smelling and terrible performance. So realistically, if you're going to put your kart away for the winter, drain all the fuel out of it. The next question comes from Sahib, and he's asking about tuning his Tony kart with a hard axle. And the problem that he's got is he's driving through fast sweeping corners, and he has some uncontrollable hopping. So the thing I could suggest for that is probably going to a softer grade axle. Other than that, you could lower the driver's seating position or tilt his shoulders backwards a little bit. Try to get the center of gravity down. Maybe come up on your tire pressures if you could. Squeeze that in without them going off. Failing that, I'd be probably adding a little bit more rigidity to the back of the kart, whether it is adding the third bearing or chucking the seat stays back on it. I hope that helps. It is really hard to sort of diagnose kart problems over the internet, but if you do have any success or failures with that advice, please get in contact with me with a DM or a message in YouTube, and I'll do my best to try to sort your problems out. So the next question comes from Tanner, and he's asking for some tips on racewear, and also if I've got any tips on the Briggs L0206. When it comes to race gear, the race gear has to meet our minimum safety requirement. So as long as it does that, you're pretty much good. And then the rest depends on price. And the sky's the limit. There's really high-end stuff, there's entry level, and there's normally a mid-range in all the brands, Alpine Stars, Sparco, or OMP. So really choose the brand that you like the most in the colors that you can get and that are available, and go with that. Now when it comes to the Briggs, we do have one here. It is going on our 4-stroke kart over the next few weeks, and we will be bringing it to the track. So as for tips, stay tuned, because as we find out little tricks with the LO206, we'll be sharing them with you guys. Next question comes from Christian, and he's asking about specialty tools. What could you do with and what can you do without? And what I would suggest for specialty tools, depending on the type of engine that you've got, probably only going to really need the clutch pulling tool, because everything else can be done by your engine service center, which is more specialized, like micrometers and verniers and stuff like this, and dial indicators. So those things are nice if you've got limited funds and you want to buy everything under the sun. But if you are a little bit strapped, just get yourself the clutch tools, and that's probably enough to get you out of trouble on a race day. Gundry Motorsports is asking, what is a common thing to fix on X30s? Basically, we are fixing carburetors. That's the one thing. Yep, we're doing carby kits every now and then. Maybe the reed pedals if we break them, spark plugs, but generally they're a pretty hardy engine. So yeah, that's what we're fixing. So Faraz Arasi is asking where the name Power Republic came from. So the name Power Republic came to me back in 2003. So naturally, when I started my own business in 2010, it was just a no-brainer. Power Republic all the way. The next question is from George, and he's having troubles with his K800 getting maximum RPMs. Now, if you do have the right gearing for your circuit on, generally not getting to max RPM is the condition of too richer jet settings in the high RPM. So whether you've got to turn your high speed needle back on the carburetor and then open up the low speed needle a bit, but the solution realistically is to get a lambda sensor, measure your air fuel ratios, and then report back, and then I'll give you the next step. So the next question comes from Toby, and he's asking for his perfect Rotax water temperature in his DD2. Now we're talking Celsius here in Australia, and that is 50 to 55 degrees. So my friend Thomas is asking all about go-karts. He wants to know about our race shop. He's talking gearbox oils, spark plugs. So what we're going to do for Thomas is stay tuned to Instagram, my friend. We're going to be rocking you some reels, shop tours, trailers, all that sort of stuff. And now for the gearbox oil, we have done a video on that. So click through our library and you will see how to change gears on a DD2 and also the gearbox oil. You need 150 milliliters, by the way. And then also to your spark plugs, you've got hot, which is a 10, cold, which is a 10, medium, which is a 9, and 8, which is in a hot spark plug range, generally on the NGKs. Cold, wet conditions, you're going to use the 8. Normal sort of autumn weather, you're going to use the 9, and then in the middle of summer, you're going to use the 10. As a rule of thumb. Robin Webbers is asking about KZ, and he wants to see some more videos. And I'm saying, yeah, I love KZs. I love driving them. Is there anything in particular you'd like to know about the KZ? Let us know, and I'll do my best to find those answers for you. Adam G's asking about the Tony Kart brake cylinders and how to stop them from leaking. The only thing I could say, Adam, is maybe just double check that your bolts are tight, and also too, you could double check the O-rings underneath the discharge plugs. If they are leaking a little bit, maybe just replace those. The next question is from Callie, and he's asking about the brake pads and what and he wants to know which grade to buy, soft, medium or hard. Now with the Tony Kart, we only have the one standard compound. I'm not sure if it's soft, medium or hard, but in some of the other brands, yes, you can get soft, medium, hard compound. Now I'd start with a medium always, and then if my braking performance needed changing or I was chewing up brake pads, I'd go to a harder one, or if I wasn't pulling up the kart fast enough, I'd go to a softer one. That's basically all I could suggest for choosing brake pad compounds. So the next question is in regards to adding lead to the kart. He needs to add 18 kilos. Well, the best way to add 18 kilos to the kart is slowly. I'd put 2 kilos on at a time, or maybe 4 kilos to start with, and then just see when the balance changes. So if I'm adding it to the back of the seat and then the kart's starting to understeer, I'm going to start to add the next 2 or 4 kilo block closer to the front of the kart or underneath the front of the seat until that balance comes back. So yeah, just add your weight slowly to make sure your balance front to rear with a neutral kart is still consistent. Any thoughts on the J3 comp cart? Yeah, we've got comp carts here in Australia. They're fine. It's a Birrell cart essentially. So it's got free line running gear. And what I would say is, mate, if there's someone in your area that stocks them, has the parts, and is going to offer some technical advice, I'd say go for it. It's going to work perfectly fine at your local track. Anthony's asking, why is there no four-stroking? Why there's no four-stroke racing down under? Now, we do have some four-stroke racing here. It isn't super popular yet. Well, not in all areas of the country anyway. Just where people have sort of got it started and there's a little bit of competition, it's slowly growing. We use a different engine here than in America, where you guys are using your LO206 with Briggs & Stratton. We do have one here at the shop. We are going to be putting it on the cart like we mentioned earlier. So stay tuned, especially if you've got any Briggs questions. Theo is asking that he's having some problem with throttle response, especially off the corners. What you can do to fix that, well, the easiest way is to get yourself a lambda sensor or air fuel ratio sensor and add it to your cart. Now, what that's going to do is it's going to show you whether your cart is running lean or rich off the corner. I'm just going to stab a guess at it's probably running a little bit lean, and you need to open up the low speed jet or change your float level on the dual auto. Now, that is a pretty broad rule of thumb. So get yourself a lambda sensor and report back with the findings, and I'll tell you what to do next. So the last question from today is from Tom Brook, and he's asking how long is the rebuild periods for KAs? Now, you can safely run those KAs out to 10 to 15 hours. That's no problem, especially for club day racing. But I will say this, my top line guys will bring their engines in to get a new piston fitted before each event if they're going to a state or national title. So if you are doing those events and the budget's going to stretch to that, you can. But if you're not and you're racing just locally, stick to the 10 to 15 hours and you should be all sweet. Thanks to everybody that's tuned in and sending the questions. We really appreciate it. And obviously, we couldn't do this type of video without you guys, especially our YouTube members and also to the Patreons. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, do it right now because it costs you nothing, but it means a lot. Otherwise, just like the damn video and we really appreciate it. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Stratford. Charlie Stratford 22 says, Tony karts are sick. I agree. So the first question, is that right? So he does that. Hello? Well, I didn't want to waffle too much. Bro, okay. Is that cool? Or do you want a different answer? And that perfect temperature is 50 to 55 degrees. That's when you're going to get Celsius, degrees Celsius. So if the cart's starting to understeer and you're changing the cart just to... I was trying to finish it before I had to sneeze. Okay, I'm having a break. Press pause, please.